If I told you there was a silent language that men speak when they're alone, especially during the most vulnerable moments of the day, would you believe me? There's a truth about male psychology that few women truly know. Men think about women in a much deeper way than they can ever express, particularly in those quiet moments right before sleep. I know exactly what it's like to lie awake wondering if you really matter to him, if you occupy a space in his mind when you're not together. You're not the first woman to question whether those tender moments mean something real or if they're just about convenience. And no, you're not imagining things. One of the greatest scholars of human psychology taught us something profound about how men process their emotions. They can rarely verbalize what they feel, but their behaviors reveal truths that words never could. And in the most intimate and silent moments, when all the masks come off, a body language and emotional truth emerges that doesn't lie. Your feminine intuition is too sacred to be ignored. And today, you're going to discover how to decipher the most subtle signs that reveal when you're living in his thoughts. Even in the silence of the night, there's this quiet ritual that happens for a man at the end of the day, when the world goes still and he's alone with his thoughts. It's in these vulnerable moments, away from prying eyes and expectations, that the truth about how he feels about you comes through, often in ways he doesn't even realize. Psychology shows us something fascinating about how men process deep emotional connections. Unlike women who tend to verbalize and share their feelings, men often feel their emotions through impulses, gestures, and behaviors that surface when they're most relaxed and unguarded. The first sign appears in the way he communicates with you at the end of the day. Notice if he texts or calls you in those quiet moments, when there's no real urgency or practical need. That impulse to connect with you when he's winding down reveals that your presence brings him comfort and peace. When a man thinks about a woman before drifting off to sleep, there's a different quality to his communication. It's no longer the functional messages of the day, but something softer, more intimate. Maybe he shares something that happened during his day, or asks how you're feeling. These are the moments when his defenses are down, and the need for emotional connection naturally comes to the surface. Pay attention to the timing of these messages too. If he consistently reaches out after 9 or 10 p.m., or as he's getting ready for bed, it suggests that you're one of the last people he thinks about before ending the day. For a man, that's deeply meaningful because it represents safety and emotional comfort. Feminine energy has a way of soothing a man's mind, especially after a long, intense day. When he seeks your presence, even virtually, during those moments of transition between the busy day and restful sleep, he's unconsciously acknowledging how important your energy is to his well-being. The second sign shows up in his body language when you're together, especially in moments of physical closeness. There's a subtle but noticeable difference between casual intimacy and the intimacy of someone who holds you in their thoughts. Notice how he touches you. When a man is constantly thinking about you, his touches carry a different quality. They're lingering, more present, like he's trying to memorize the sensation. He might gently run his fingers through your hair, hold your hand a little longer than needed, or hug you like he's recharging emotionally. The psychology of a man's touch is truly revealing. Men who have a deep emotional connection tend to seek physical contact that's not just sexual, but comforting. It's the kind of touch that happens when you're watching something together and he instinctively pulls you closer, or when he puts his hand on your back as he passes by, even if it seems like a casual gesture. Another powerful indicator is the way he looks at you when he thinks you don't notice. These stolen glances are windows into his inner world. If you often catch him watching you with a softer, more thoughtful expression, it reveals that he's processing feelings he can't, or doesn't know how to, express. The language of a man's eyes, when deep feelings are involved, is unmistakable. It's not the look of superficial desire, but the kind of look that seems to be trying to etch every detail of your face into his memory. It's like he's collecting images of you to revisit when he's alone. Also, notice if he shows a particular awareness of your physical well-being. He notices when you're tired, when something's different about your energy, when you need care. This attention to detail reveals that he observes you in a way that goes far beyond the surface. He's attuned to you in a way that only happens when someone is truly present in our thoughts. The third sign shows itself in how he acts regarding the time you spend together. When a man holds a woman in his thoughts, he unconsciously tries to stretch out those moments of closeness, as if he doesn't want them to end. Notice if he finds excuses to stay with you longer, even when there's no real reason. Maybe he lingers before leaving after a visit, or suggests extra things to do when you've already finished your plans. This behavior reveals that being with you is more than just enjoyable. It's essential for his emotional well-being. Men's psychology tells us that men who are emotionally connected tend to create unconscious rituals around that special person. He might always want to walk you to the door or insist on driving you home even when it's not needed. These little rituals are his way of extending those moments of connection. Also, notice how he reacts when you have to part ways. If there's a genuine hesitation, if he seems reluctant to say goodbye, or if he finds reasons to text you soon after you've separated, it suggests that your physical presence leaves a void when it's gone. One particularly telling thing is how he behaves in the late afternoon or early evening. If he often suggests activities or conversations during these times, or if he shows a special interest in how you're going to spend your night, it could mean he's mentally anticipating the moment when he'll be alone with his thoughts and wants to make sure you're okay and connected with him. A man's need to close out the day with you, even if it's through a simple text or a quick call, reveals that you've become part of his emotional routine. You're not just someone he enjoys being with. You've become someone he doesn't feel completely at peace without at the end of the day. Men rarely admit this emotional reliance, but it shows in these little gestures, wanting to prolong the connection, building bridges between visits, making sure the last impression of the day includes your feminine energy. The fourth sign reveals itself in the way he shares his inner world with you. When a man is constantly thinking about a woman, he naturally starts including her in aspects of his life he'd normally keep private. Notice if he tells you details about his day that aren't necessarily important, but reveal how he's feeling. Maybe he shares frustration with work, joy over small victories, or even random thoughts that crossed his mind. This tendency to think out loud with you indicates that you've become his emotional confidant. A particularly significant indicator is when he includes you in his future plans naturally and spontaneously. I'm not talking about formal commitments, but those casual comments like, "When we go see that movie, next weekend we could," or "You'd love that place." This language reveals that he unconsciously already includes you in his future. Male psychology shows us that men tend to compartmentalize their emotional lives. When they start breaking down these barriers and including a woman in different aspects of their lives, work, family, dreams, fears, it indicates a level of trust and connection that goes far beyond the superficial. Pay attention to whether he asks for your opinion on important decisions, even if they're personal or professional. When a man values a woman's perspective on issues that affect his life, it reveals that he not only respects her intelligence, but that he considers her an important part of his decision-making process. Another powerful sign is when he tells you about important people in his life. If he mentions family, close friends, or even introduces you to these people, it indicates that you're not just someone he spends time with, you're someone he wants to integrate into his inner circle. The way he reacts to your opinions and advice is also revealing. If he really considers what you say, if he mentions conversations you've had, or if he implements your suggestions, it shows that your words echo in his mind long after the conversation is over. The fifth sign emerges in the way he shows care and protection, especially regarding your emotional and physical well-being. There's a subtle but fundamental difference between simple politeness and the genuine care of someone who holds you in their thoughts. Notice if he demonstrates a particular concern for your safety and comfort. Maybe he always asks if you got home okay, makes sure you're comfortable in new environments, or shows special attention to your emotional state when something's not quite right. This level of attentiveness reveals that your well-being is an emotional priority for him. Psychology teaches us that when a man develops deep feelings, a protective instinct activates within him, one that goes beyond the rational. It's not possessiveness or control, but a genuine concern that arises from the fact that your suffering directly affects his own emotional well-being. A particularly telling indicator is how he reacts when you're going through a hard time. If he shows a real need to help, offers consistent support, or is visibly affected when you're not doing well, it indicates that your emotional state has become important to his own equilibrium. Pay attention also to the small, everyday acts of care. Does he remember to ask about that doctor's appointment you mentioned? Does he worry about whether you're eating properly when you're stressed? Does he notice when you're quieter than usual? This attention to the details of your life reveals that you occupy a constant space in his mind. The way he reacts to other men around you can also be enlightening. If there's a particular attentiveness, without it being toxic possessiveness, to how other men treat you, it reveals that he feels an emotional responsibility towards you that goes beyond friendship or a casual relationship. Men who constantly think about a woman tend to develop a special sensitivity to her needs. They begin to notice patterns in her mood, anticipate her needs, and offer support before you even ask. This emotional attunement is one of the clearest signs that you inhabit his thoughts in a very consistent way. The sixth, and perhaps most subtle sign, appears in how he reacts when you're not around. When a man carries a woman in his thoughts, her absence creates a noticeable void, and that emptiness shows itself in specific ways. Notice if he reaches out more when you've been apart. Not necessarily in a desperate way, but look for a greater frequency of contact, revealing that he genuinely feels your absence. He might send longer texts, call for no particular reason, or show a heightened interest in making plans to see you. The psychology of longing is different for men than it is for women. Men tend to feel absence more physically and express it less with words. They might become restless, more prone to leaving the house to distract themselves, or more interested in activities that keep them busy. If you notice these patterns when you're apart, it suggests that your presence has become an emotional need for him. A telltale sign is how he greets you after a period of absence.
If there's a different energy when you reunite, a more intense hug, a more present gaze, a greater interest in hearing about your time away, it reveals that the separation was felt deeply. Pay attention if he mentions things that reminded him of you while you were apart. I saw a woman wearing a dress just like yours. I drove past that cafe you love. I heard a song you would really enjoy.
These unconscious associations reveal that you're present in his mind, even when you're not together physically. The way he behaves in those first few moments after you reunite is also very telling. If there's a need to quickly reestablish physical closeness through touches, hugs, or simply sitting closer, it indicates that the absence created an emotional hunger that needs to be satisfied. Men who constantly think about a woman often develop a habit of saving things to tell her. If he accumulates stories, experiences, or discoveries to share when you get back together, it reveals that you've become the person he wants to share the important moments of his life with. Understanding these signs isn't about building castles in the sky or reading into every little thing like it's a declaration of undying love. It's about learning to see when you truly matter to someone, when you're more than just a casual acquaintance or a convenient option in a man's life. A woman's wisdom lies in knowing the difference between real attention and a game, between genuine interest and a fleeting need. When you can spot these subtle, yet steady signs, you protect yourself from pouring your heart into someone who doesn't value it and from overlooking true connections. The real shift happens when you stop chasing validation and start trusting your gut to see the truth in actions, not just words. Your intuition is a finely tuned instrument for picking up on the nuances of a man's emotions. Just remember, these signs only mean something when they show up consistently and naturally. A one-time thing might be nothing, but a pattern tells a story. The trick is to watch without being anxious, notice without inventing stories, and recognize without losing sight of yourself. When you truly understand that you're valued, it sets you free to be even more yourself. You stop trying to be someone else to earn attention and just start being who you are, knowing that your true self is seen and loved. A woman who's in tune with herself doesn't have to beg for signs of affection. She just knows them when they're there and doesn't shrink if they aren't. That balance of awareness and emotional independence is the hallmark of a woman who knows her own worth. Now a practice to help you integrate this new awareness. Find a quiet moment today and place your hands over your heart. Breathe deeply and allow yourself to feel your own presence, your own energy. Ask yourself, how do I feel when I'm with him? Does my energy expand, or does it contract? Trust that gut feeling your body offers. It's more accurate than any mental analysis of the signals you perceive. Practice observing without overthinking. During your next encounters, simply allow yourself to be present and notice how he behaves naturally, without seeking confirmations or creating interpretations. The truth reveals itself in the natural flow of being together. Remember, your worth doesn't depend on being in anyone's thoughts before they fall asleep. You are complete on your own. These signs simply reveal when someone has the capacity to recognize and value the extraordinary woman you already are. The silent language of a man's heart reveals itself not in grand declarations, but in the small, consistent gestures that emerge when all defenses are down. When a man carries you in his thoughts, especially in those vulnerable moments before sleep, it manifests through an attentiveness that transcends words. You don't need to guess if you matter to someone. Your feminine intuition, when it's attuned, naturally recognizes the difference between genuine interest and superficial attention. Trust that ancestral wisdom that lives within you. And when you find someone who demonstrates these signs consistently and respectfully, allow yourself to receive that attention without fear. You deserve to be in the thoughts of someone who recognizes your light, your strength, your unique essence. The silent revolution of the feminine is knowing that you are already worthy of occupying the dreams and thoughts of those who can see your true nature. Not because you work to be there, but simply because you are who you are. And if this video found you, it's not by chance. Maybe your soul needed this reminder that a conscious woman does not chase, does not beg, does not plead. She observes, she feels, and she chooses. Because the one who truly thinks of you won't confuse you. He won't make you question your worth or keep you trapped in silences that hurt. So close your eyes, take a deep breath, and remember this. True love is never begged for. It is recognized.